All right, everybody, welcome to episode 160 of the Fantasy Timeline, a proud member of the Dynasty Addicts Podcast Network. I'm Josh at Real Fantasy TL. I am with the co-host with the most, Drew at DR_PRA. Drew, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, doing well. Welcome to 2023.
2023. I hope the new year has been good for you. Only a few days in, but can't complain so far. Um, Before we get started, um, we're a small podcast, and we understand that. But um, you know, everybody just you know spend a second and think about Damar Hamlin today. Drew, obviously, if people have been watching the show, they know you're a huge Buffalo Bills fan, and uh, just seeing that is unlike anything I've ever seen before. I mean, I've been watching football for 30 years or so, and I can't think of any situation like that ever occurring on a football field, uh, pro, college, anything like that. So um, I think people, for the most part, have been really understanding about that situation. It's good to see. At last count, I saw that his toy drive GoFundMe was at like $4 million. I'm not sure if that's
Yeah, it's higher.
it's higher. All
Last I
right,
saw, it was six plus.
six. Okay,
Yeah,
uh,
yeah.
busy day at my day job, so I haven't been able to peek in. But
No,
that's
it's been amazing to see the outpouring of support, whether it's on some of the mainstream shows. Obviously, Twitter has a really strong fantasy community. Really cool to see some of the different individuals, businesses, organizations that have donated. Um, Kind of a cool turn to see. I think Andy Dalton and his son donated a good bit uh, after a few years ago. Bills Mafia donated quite a bit to Andy's charity after he helped get us into the playoffs for the first time in like 18 years.
yeah,
So some really cool things out there from some of the people on ESPN, some of the other shows. But yeah, I couldn't imagine. I mean, we've seen some wild stuff, and it's a violent sport, right? So we've seen some crazy stuff happen, some physical injuries. I remember back in the '90s seeing Chris Spielman go down, and some other guys that have been paralyzed or had other life changing, life altering events happen. Um, but yeah, I couldn't imagine. Glad his mom was there to be able to be with him in Cincy, and just a huge
yeah,
shout out to the Bengals organization. I mean, from what I can tell, nothing but class from the fans, from the organization, immediate care. Yeah, so it looks like things are hopefully trending in a good direction at this point. Almost 48 hours removed, but still tenuous. But
yeah,
just hoping the best for him, and I can imagine, for him, his family. Saw somebody put out there today too. Don't forget about. I can imagine being in T. Higgins' shoes, being an active participant in that.
ugh,
Um, you know, eh, Unintentional, of course, and on one hand, and for such a violent game, for so many games and so many collisions, it's almost a wonder that this type of severe injury doesn't happen more frequently. But thank goodness that it doesn't.
yeah, and you know, I wanted to bring up, Drew, we were chatting about this a little bit before we came on. I think 99% of people get it. Um, we spoke about Damar Hamlin's toy drive that's, raising uh, an amazing amount of money, which is just
Yeah.
people uh, understanding and being compassionate. But for the 1%, just before you say anything, before your Twitter fingers come out, imagine that was your brother, your son, your cousin, your uncle, whatever the case may be. And please just sit and think about that before you decide to say something or type something. Um, because unfortunately, while it's been almost unanimously good, uh, there's been some stray bullets, and I'm not going to name names because I really don't want to give those people, even with our limited reach, I don't want to give them any more publicity than they've already gotten. But just think about that before you decide to, make your opinion known. But we're gonna put that to the side for now. I'm sure we're gonna talk about it a little bit later when we talk about leagues and stuff. But let's talk about the 2022 fantasy season. It's over, depending on the game you were playing and your commissioner and everything.
There's a few going on still.
What were your thoughts? Anything that comes to mind when I say 2022 fantasy season, Drew? What we're just going to go from the hip today and talk about what we were feeling.
I think my initial reflection is just so much unexpected, so much good that was unexpected from some different guys this year. I think we always look back, and there's obviously, if it was easy to predict, we'd be making money on this thing, but it just felt like there was so much up in the air. Outside of Jonathan Taylor being the RB1, that was something we were certain about, right? After him, it was up for grabs as far as who would fill out the rest of the top 5 or so, and you had folks that were way off of CMC, and I was in that group. I didn't have him anywhere in redraft or dynasty leagues, but seeing him, amazing to see. The 49ers are undefeated since he's come over to their organization. You love seeing some of the stories like Brock Purdy and the stretch that Taylor Heineke had again, but just some unexpected things where there was some great value for your team if you were paying attention, you were ahead of the curve a little bit. And then, a couple of the old guys, I think that I assumed would be tailing off this year. I guess that's something that we repeat every year. A couple of guys like Henry, Devontae Adams, he was that guy still this year. So yeah, just some unexpected things that it was hard to predict early on. I know we'll kind of go back and talk through some of the things that we thought earlier on versus how they turned out, but it just feels like this year. I don't know. I don't know what it was about this year. Maybe it just wasn't I wasn't quite as locked in at the beginning of the year to get a good pulse. But yeah, that's kind of the unexpected. Some pleasant surprises throughout the year. How about you?
I want to piggyback off of what you said, since we're talking about surprises. We had friend of the show, Rocky Petrella, on, and we kind of made a joke. He had said something, and I don't quite remember what he said, but we made the joke that Rocky is saying that Jalen Hurts is Josh Allen. And man, Jalen Hurts, a very, very, very close,
almost interchangeable.
facsimile,
Yeah,
to Josh Allen.
Yeah.
And this is what I have come to realize. We need to stop discounting quarterbacks, no matter what our feelings are about them, once they get in a. Josh Allen got Stephon Diggs. That's when the leap happened. Jalen Hurts gets A.J. Brown. That's when the leap happens. In a much, much smaller sample size, Joe Burrow takes the leap once he gets Jamar Chase. And I still remember all the arguments. Do you take Jamar Chase or do you take the offensive lineman? And I scream from the mountaintop, you take Jamar Chase. Because guess what? The draft isn't one round. You can get other offensive linemen. And it took them a little bit
Yeah.
They had to draft some guys. They had to get some free agents in. They needed time for those guys to come and meld together. But if we see, you know, Deebo Samuel traded, let's just say, you know, that was kind of a thing last year. He's going to get traded. And he got the big contract, so he's probably not getting traded. All right, let's look at where he's going. You know, is he going to, you know, or here, even a better example, Tyreek Hill went to Miami, and we saw the emergence of Tua. And, you know, in both Tua's case and Jalen Hurts' case, they had really good receivers the year before. Jalen Waddle and Devonta Smith were not slouches. They were not bums by any stretch of the imagination. But we see when that alpha comes in, that elite wide receiver comes in. And I think that's what we need to keep an eye on. If we see, I'm trying to think of someone that could possibly move. Any ideas on that?
Oh man, I'd have to. I mean, Devontae Adams is potentially right. There's some whispers there that maybe he moves on from the Raiders.
Right. So I doubt he would get cut, but if he gets traded, you know, all right, like where is he going? You know, and there may not be guys that we can think of right now, but if we hear in April or in May, so-and-so is unhappy. So, because that's what happened to Tyreek. Tyreek was unhappy. He wanted his money. And she said, we ain't gonna pay you. We're gonna trade you. And he got traded to Miami. Boom. Tua, like a rocket ship, right?
Yeah.
And I think, you know, we have to, even if we don't like the guy, right? Even if we're like, I'm not sure about this guy. You know, if that elite guy comes in, I think I think it's almost like a speculative buy. Because guess what? You could have gotten Josh Allen for what? A late first, a second before Stephon Diggs came into town.
Oh yeah.
Right? Yeah. We're like, God, this guy is fine, okay, average, maybe even a little below average. And now, I mean, it would cost you half your team in a trade to get a Josh Allen.
Yeah.
Same thing with Jalen Hurts. I think Jalen Hurts had more hype pre-AJ Brown, but what was the price of Jalen Hurts pre-AJ Brown, and what's the price of Jalen Hurts now?
Oh, ridiculous.
Right. And that might be a fun little experiment for us to do.
In one of my 12-team leagues, back when Antonio Gibson was a rookie, got him in the draft, rode the hype, and I got he came out in 21, so I would have gotten this is his third year.
20.
Okay. So I got whatever the next year was, I got like a mid-round first, and I got Jalen Hurts as a throw-in because I had Carson Wentz on that team. So I was thrilled to get the late first because I was not a long-term believer in Antonio Gibson.
Right.
Rode that roller coaster. But then a year and a half later, right before he started to pick up at the end of last year, I don't want to go back and see what package I included him in when I traded him away. I think he might have been a part of getting either a Josh Allen or a Patrick Mahomes back, which would definitely make me feel better, but still way under value of what he could be now. When he's probably, I'm seeing people right now in the early startups saying they're taking him. There's a couple of folks that are Philly homers that I think have taken him 101 over Josh Allen in a Superflex startup.
Right.
So, yeah, crazy shift in value just in the last 6 months, even leading up to this season.
And so that's kind of what I'm saying. If we see a top 3, 4, 5, 6 guy at the wide receiver position say they're not happy and they want out, all right, let's track him because that's probably going to be a quarterback, even if it's a guy where
Well, even this year, you look at a Geno Smith, right? I think I thought Tyler Lockett was dead when Russ left. Russ was the key to his success in that moon ball. But you watch him and DK work, and all of a sudden, Geno is winning weeks, if not leagues, for people as a late round super flex ad, or he gives you the ability to trade who was your QB2 for a need in week 4 or 5 when you start to believe in what he's doing there. And all of a sudden, he's your QB2 for the rest of the year. And you flipped whoever your QB2 was for, the running back that you needed to be able to start every week or something like that. So, I think as you're talking, I think the idea of, I've always been more of a talent rises, right? Talent will transcend the situation, et cetera. But I think this year is a good reminder, a good check that the situation has to be considered as well. And I don't know what the ratio is or what the right blend is of that. But I think for me anyways, as you're talking, it needs to be more than it has been in the past couple of years. I think for the last couple of years up till this year, we've seen the talent rise, and we've seen, like we saw Jonathan Taylor last year with a tough situation at quarterback, but his talent carried, right? But this year, totally different.
And, I was just looking while you were talking, to look at the inverse. AJ Brown goes to Philadelphia, leaves Tennessee. Ryan Tannehill, and he had injuries and everything, was 26th in total points scored. So we're seeing the inverse. Like, hey, let's watch out for these teams that aren't supplying their quarterbacks with weapons. And before I move on to the next point, that my apologies to Rocky, because apparently Jalen Hurts did turn into Josh Allen. So Rocky, even though you didn't say it, we put the words in your mouth. Hold on, Drew. You could be the judge of this. So technically, was Rocky right, or were we right because we put the words into his mouth?
I think I remember Rocky saying something along the lines of he saw it being a strong possibility that Jalen Hurts could take a Josh Allen-like step forward this year in production with the addition of AJ Brown, because it would open up some of the passing, or it'd make passing maybe a little bit easier for him, something along those lines. And yes, of course, we jumped right to the, Rocky says Jalen Hurts equals Josh Allen, which in hindsight,
we were right. we were both right. Rocky was
sure.
Right. Rocky was right. He took that big, massive leap with the big-time alpha receiver. And we were right for saying Jalen Hurts equals Josh Allen. So we're right all around. But
we did say the words. Never mind the tone that was
right,
driving.
Right. We're not. Listen. We got to get our wins where we can get them.
Absolutely.
And it's funny because we talked about Tua, but you and I had a little Tua versus Trevor Lawrence bet, but Jacksonville did the same thing, even though we all kind of thought it was foolish the way they went about doing it. They understood that their weapons were trash. DJ Chark, Laviska Shenault, Marvin Jones wasn't going to cut it in the NFL. So they paid for Christian Kirk, and we didn't like that money, but they paid for Zay Jones. We didn't like that money, but they paid for him. And we saw the coaching was also a big part of that.
Yes.
But we saw the step forward. Then at the trade deadline, what do? They trade for Calvin Ridley. Now, what can Calvin Ridley be? I don't know, because he's going to be almost 2 years not playing football by the time he gets back into camp.
Yeah, I'm not worried about it.
But that just shows that Jacksonville is not satisfied
Yeah.
with just Christian Kirk and just Zay Jones, who both, and Evan Ingram. Please let me not forget Evan Ingram, because he had
League winner.
a hell of a year this year. But they weren't satisfied with that. They said, let's do more. And even if Calvin Ridley doesn't have it anymore, he's been out for 2 years. He can't get it into gear. We've kind of seen Deshaun Watson struggle in his few games back. They're showing, hey, we're going to keep just loading this guy up with weapons. Like, it's not going to stop. And what if Jacksonville, and I don't care if they make the playoffs or not. I mean, everything they're doing at this point is gravy. What if they use a second-round pick on a tight end? This is supposed to be a good tight end class. What if they use a second-round pick on another wide receiver?
Yeah.
And they just keep going, hey, we're not happy with just 3 wide receivers. We're going to get them a 4th, or we're going to get them 3 and another tight end that we think is going to do things. I mean, it's amazing how, and it doesn't seem like this should be a shocking revelation, but when you see guys like Josh Allen and Jalen Hurts and Trevor Lawrence take massive leaps once they get weapons, it's kind of like, what are teams like Tennessee doing? I like Treylon Burks, by the way. This is not anti-Treylon Burks slander, but what else is there?
Yeah.
Austin Hooper,
Robert Woods.
I love Robert Woods. I've been a
Yeah.
big fan for a long time, but he's done. I'm sorry. He's what, a 31-year-old coming off an ACL injury?
Yeah.
No. I mean, and what else? It's not good. And we saw the rise in fantasy of Ryan Tannehill with AJ Brown.
Yeah.
Like,
in the play action. Yeah. I'm just wondering, like, what would we be thinking about Justin Fields right now if the Bears had traded for Calvin Ridley?
well, we would be excited as hell. And Chicago is an interesting team because they got the 2 pick in a draft where number 1 is probably going to be a quarterback.
Yep.
Number 2, probably going to be a quarterback, but they got Justin Fields. So this is the time where you make the blockbuster deal, where you go, okay, Indianapolis, you've been Phillip Rivering, Carson Wentzing, Matt Ryaning this thing, and except for Phillip Rivers, it's all been trash can city.
Terrible.
You have Michael Pittman. Alec Pierce has shown some things. You have Jonathan Taylor. You have 17 6'9" tight ends. Like, you have pieces in place. You have an offensive line that everyone says is good. It's kind of like what we were saying about our old friends in Denver, right? You got everything but the quarterback. And Chicago should take one of these teams, whether it's Carolina, whether it's Indianapolis, whether it's a wild card team that we're not even thinking about right now.
Yeah. Where's Houston in the draft? Are they top 5?
Houston
They gotta be
is
top
1.
5, right? Oh, Houston. Okay.
So and Houston's taking a quarterback.
Yeah.
They have 2 first-round picks. I think right now their second pick is 11. That's the Cleveland pick from the Deshaun deal. So
good for them.
So they're probably going to take a quarterback at 1, and it's C.J. Stroud, Bryce Young. It's going to be one of those guys. So Chicago is really in they're in the main event seat.
Yeah, you got
Because-
Indy at 5, Vegas at 7,
Yep. Carolina at 9.
Atlanta at 8, Carolina at 9, Tennessee at 10.
Yeah.
I mean, shoot, you got to have, Philly right now, I think, has New Orleans 11, and then Houston's got Cleveland's 12.
The Jets at 13.
Yep. So they've got, what, half a dozen potential trade partners there. Load up.
Like, you need to take somebody to the cleaners
Yep.
and restock with a ton of picks and use them on the offensive side of the ball. Get
They
yourself.
they need to watch draft day on repeat for the next 90 days.
Dude, they need to get themselves, let's face it, 3 receivers, another running back.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to see. You know, a lot of mixed feelings there for David Montgomery's been steady, but you got Khalil Herbert who should be, healthy and ready to go, not too far off, right? He should be ready to go pretty quickly here, have a full off season. So what do you do with David Montgomery?
Well, I'm pretty sure he's a free agent. And
Yeah.
what use is he to a team that just needs to rebuild?
Yeah.
Like, listen, let him get some money and go to maybe go to a contender. San Francisco loves collecting running backs, and I know they have Christian McCaffrey, but they love collecting running backs. There are some places, what is Kansas City doing? They could use a David Montgomery.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the thing is like
Patriots pick him up cheap because he wants to.
Patriots come get him. Miami could use a running back.
Yep.
There are a lot of contending teams that, David Montgomery could sign. He's not going to make $10 million a year. He's not that guy, but
No.
he can still do some things on the field. And, and that's, but, going back to Fields, like, golly, trade that 2 pick and get a bunch of picks and just put horses around, around Justin Fields so that he doesn't have to break the quarterback rushing record in order to keep this team competitive in games. Not even win games. To keep him competitive, he has to break NFL records, which is crazy. But I mean, my goodness, I mean, if you can trade down in that like 6 to 13 range, I mean, you got Quentin Johnson from TCU that's available, Jordan Addison from USC, Jackson Smith and Jigba, reunite. That's kind of been the big thing lately, right? Tua and Waddle, Hurts and Smith. Maybe you want to get to, Jackson Smith and Jigba. There are guys that are going to be available. If
they can move things around, right? Get a Marvin Harrison Jr. But
he's
24. He's 24, right?
24,
yeah. It'll be interesting to see that.
Get him next year.
Yeah.
like you're gonna need the help. Get him next year. But yeah, and that's my thing. Like, I kind of hope that their GM and head coach are looking around the league and going, man, let's look at all these playoff teams.
They got to make some calls.
The Eagles have AJ Brown. The Vikings have Justin Jefferson. The 49ers do it a little bit differently, but Debo, when healthy, is a very good receiver. The Bucks have Godwin and Evans.
Yeah.
Cowboys have CeeDee Lamb. All these teams that we're seeing, I don't know, in the playoff race. Seattle is on the verge. We talked about it earlier. Metcalf and Lockett. The Giants, they're different. but that's what we're seeing. We're seeing these teams have amazing pass catching weapons, and maybe except for the Giants, is there another team that really? I mean, I guess Baltimore's in it, and they don't really have an amazing pass catching weapon, but Andrews.
Yeah, you have Andrews, and then the rotation otherwise.
And that's kind of what I'm thinking. But I want to trickle back to something you said earlier, since we're wrapping up the season and we're looking now forward to the draft. Rookies, who's coming out. But I don't want to talk about a rookie. I want to talk about a guy we briefly mentioned earlier.
Okay.
Russell Wilson. What are you doing with Russell Wilson? What do you think about Russell Wilson?
From what I've seen, I haven't stayed real close, but I mean, clearly the coaching was not stellar. Hackett is gone early, right? So never good to see a coach gone during the season. It's one thing to lose your job after the season. During the season means some shit went sideways, right?
I think so.
So I don't think he's anywhere in the Trevor Lawrence universe with Urban Meyer, but is there something to be said for a change here? So if I've got him on my team, I am not moving him for what I'm probably getting offered at this point. I think at this point you've got to hold and see how they shape up their team next year. What does preseason look like? You've seen some of his teammates come out on social media and defend Russ and his work ethic, right? So that says something to have allies in the locker room. It would be a lot different if his teammates were just silent and kind of letting him hang out there to dry. So I think if you've got him, you've got to hold him. If you don't have him and you want to kick the tires and see if somebody wants to bail and maybe feel like they're going to get a little bit more now than they would have gotten a month ago, I would offer a little bit more now than I would have a month ago for what could be, possibly a couple of good years ahead if he can get a coach that'll put a game plan together that'll match his skill set a little bit more, or they'll, hopefully be healthy, right? We'll see what happens with some of their weapons, trying to stay healthy. But I'm not opposed to it'll be interesting to see where he goes in startups as we hit the non-point scoring season here over the next 90 days. I think it'll be very interesting to see where I think a lot of people are going to get Russ as a cheap QB too. And he could be another one of those guys that next year you'd be thrilled in a startup getting him in, I don't even know what his ADP would be at this point, 8th round or something. Is that too late?
I think that's going to end up being too late, just because as much as we all talk about how quarterback has actually kind of shrunk over the last 2 years, I still think you're going to get to a point where it's like, all right, who's left? All right, Russ is left.
Well, I'd have to actually, I don't have access anymore to the DLF. I haven't renewed yet, but I'd have to look at ADP now for like December and see. I mean, are you taking Cousins or are you taking Russ if they're available in a startup?
I mean, stop. We're not going to slander the good name of Kirk Cousins.
Okay, so keep moving down.
Here, you know what I'm going to do? This is what I'm going to do for you. We're going to go by points, okay?
Okay.
We're going to go by points, and we're going to kind of relate that to what.
I mean, are you taking a Baker Mayfield or a Russell Wilson in startup right now?
We're going Russ.
Okay. So
all right,
somewhere between.
So here you go. Russ, according to Fantasy Pros, 17th in total points scored this season. So
It's higher than
I'm gonna work.
expected.
I'm gonna work my way up,
Okay.
and we can both answer. Russell Wilson or Derek Carr, and that's a tough one because we don't know where Derek Carr is going to be.
That is tough. I'd probably take the guy who has a job right now. So I'll take the guy that's with the team that has a job.
And I would take him even if he was thrown to Devontae Adams next year.
Okay.
And he may be, for all we know.
Yeah.
They may go somewhere together. Russell Wilson, and here's another tough one for a different reason. Tua,
I take Tua.
even with the concussions.
Yeah.
I think I take Russ because I'm worried about the number of concussions he's gotten in such a short period of time. That's worrisome to me. If it was one concussion this year, I'd be like, all right, fine, whatever.
I'm having flashbacks back to Brandon Cooks 5 years ago, 4 years ago.
Yeah, but the difference between Tua and Brandon Cooks is Tua is also known to have other injuries besides concussions.
Sure.
Hip injuries.
Yeah. If I'm in a startup and I'm looking at both those guys, I think I take Tua still. If only I think I might be able to get more value from him in the first 4 weeks if he starts off hot again.
So we differ on Tua. Russell Wilson or Aaron Rodgers?
Probably Rodgers.
I think I go Rodgers too, but that's like close to me. That's not a slam.
Yeah, they're both aging guys. Both, Rodgers obviously a lot further, but both eccentric and weird in their own ways. Yeah, you could make an argument either way. So yeah, it probably on paper is closer, but yeah, I think my gut would be if I'm looking at those two, I would go Rodgers pretty easily in a startup.
All right, we're gonna skip the next couple because even though their points were down this year, Lamar Jackson and Justin Herbert, we're not
sure.
Yeah, that's not even. We don't even need to ask that question. If he plays next season, Tom Brady or Russell Wilson?
I'd have to go Russ.
I think if he's in Tampa Bay, which I don't think he'll be, I go Brady. If he goes to the landscape, the hellscape of Las Vegas, like some people have been talking about, I think I go Russ. They play each other twice, so that would be fun.
That would be.
Oh, here you go. This one here from Steve Dennis.
What's up, Steve?
Stafford or Russ?
I would take Stafford.
I think I would take Russ. Here's another one. Top 10 quarterback. You mentioned Kirk Cousins at 9. I want to talk about the guy right behind him. Jared Goff.
Ooh. Ooh. I would take Goff.
I think I'd take Russ just because I'm not sure. If they make the playoffs, they still have the Rams pick, which is like 4 or 5 or something like that. He could go quarterback. As crazy as it sounds.
They could.
They may say, hey, we got everything else built up. We're a playoff team. Let's get the quarterback in here now. And not to mean that like Jared Goff just doesn't do anything, but it might be like a week 8 thing, week 9 thing where we're like, oh, okay, I think the young guy is ready, Jared. We're going to send you to the bench and see what happens.
Maybe. I think my gut says if they get to the playoffs, especially if they happen to pull this back and get there, I think Campbell's the type of guy that would feel some sort of commitment or loyalty there. And at the end of the day, I don't know, has Goff cost them a lot of games this year?
in the first half of the season, I won't say necessarily cost them games, but him not showing up could be linked to why they lost games.
Yeah, I mean we're talking games where no Amon-Ra St. Brown, no Swift. You're relying on, no Hawkinson for a couple games too, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I would roll the dice on the draft capital, the youth, and yes, even if it's not in Detroit, I think he would have a good shot to compete and probably have fair odds of winning out or starting at some point, even if he's the guy coming in at week 4, 5, or 6 for a different team. So I would take Goff in that startup if it was down to him or Russ staring at me.
So I got two more behind him that we can go through, and then we can wrap this up.
Okay.
Russ or Kyler?
Oh, Kyler.
Okay.
I mean, he's probably not playing until middle of next year. So I guess some of that might depend on but if you're in a startup and if you're going to do like the productive struggle, like if you can get Kyler at a value and you want to go productive struggle, heck yeah.
Russ or Dak?
How's that a question?
I just wanted to make sure. Gotta throw him in there because
I'm just kidding. It's
we love to hate Dak, so I just wanted to make sure that.
Yeah, it's not I would take Dak before Kyler. I would take Dak before Goff. I would take Dak before Rodgers. Yeah,
I agree with all that. Yeah, so that's kind of like,
Look at this. Yes, we did, Ryan. Yes, we did.
Yeah, Ryan, what is going on, man?
Happy New Year, sir.
Happy New Year. And we did say productive struggle. I guess that's like how we can summon Ryan to the podcast. We'll just say productive struggle every week, and then he'll come and join us in the chat. Glad to see you, Ryan. But yeah, so here's a question. You have a team, right? We're not talking about startups. Startups are easy. You have a team, and it's a pretty good team, except at the quarterback position. Your quarterbacks are Trey Lance and Zach Wilson. You invested in that 2021 draft, just not in the right guys. What would you pay to acquire a Russell Wilson? The Russell Wilson owner hasn't verbalized it, but you can tell he's kind of sick and tired of Russell Wilson and his antics. Doing high knees on the plane and stuff like that to England. What are you trying to swoop in for it? And what's your initial offer?
Man, what does the rest of my team look like?
You got Nick Chubb. You have Stephon Diggs.
Okay, so I'm a win now.
Garrett Wilson. You have maybe your tight ends aren't so great, but you got
I'm throwing a couple seconds out there. I would do that in a super flex. I'd throw maybe an earlier and a later. So like maybe if I have if this year didn't go great because some of the weeks didn't line up for guys to go off and scoring, etc. Maybe I've got the 204 and I've traded for the 208 or 209 or something like that. I would definitely throw a couple of seconds at it. See what I get back.
Yeah, I think if I have a top 3, I offer the 23-second solo. And I think that's the highest I would go. But if I have a lower second, 209, 210, 211, something like that, I probably put that one and a 24-second into the mix and see if that pries away of Russ Wilson. And yeah, it's crazy that we're talking about seconds when, man, the time to sell Russ was right after he signed. right after he was traded. That was
Yep.
that was the time to trade him. But
Yep. I mean, what are you
ahead.
doing? Would you rather have him or a Jimmy Garoppolo? Is that way off between those two next year?
I think if you told me I had to make the trade today, I think I am more going towards Russ because I know
Yeah. I
where
mean,
he's going to be. I know what
what's
the
the
weapons.
gap though? Jimmy and
It's
early
big because
third, second.
it's actually a pretty big gap because Jimmy Garoppolo. I know big rumor has been him to the Jets. Now, if he goes to the Jets and he has Garrett Wilson and he has Elijah Moore and he has Brees Hall, all right, that looks kind of sexy. But what if now Derek Carr is that dude and musical chairs ends and he is the starter in Houston until the number one pick is ready to go. And Jimmy Garoppolo is worth nothing.
Yeah.
Like that's what scares. Now,
Yeah.
if I know what team he's going to be on, it might actually, especially if he ends up on a team like the Jets, that may close the gap significantly because we know, all right, good coaching staff, good weapons.
Yep.
He should be able to thrive.
Just has to manage the game. Doesn't have to win the game.
I mean, he knows the Saleh LaFleur offense already. So yeah, I think that gap narrows. But if I had to make the trade today, I'm going for Russ because, I mean, if Sean Payton comes out of retirement and ends up in Denver, what's the price of Russ going to be then?
Yeah.
Or even if, the offensive coordinator for one of these high-flying Kellen Moore goes to Denver. He gets the head coaching job. We don't know what he's going to do on defense because he's not a defensive guy, but we're going to love that offense because we've seen the Dallas Cowboys offense with, I mean, I think if we lined up the talent at the skill positions, I think Denver has more than Dallas, even though Dallas has some good pieces. I mean, if you add up Sutton, Judy, Javante, who's the tight end? I think if you add it up, I think it's close, but I think you would probably put a slight lean towards Denver. So
that's an interesting question.
If you have Kellen Moore now transferring over there, let's go. Like, you're going to be happy about that offense. You're going to be like, okay, here's a guy that we've seen do it in the league, not at the head coaching position. And by the way, I don't think they go after a coordinator. They tried that. It didn't work.
Yeah.
I think they try to get an established head coach, so if Sean Payton comes out of retirement and he gets to Denver, we're also super excited because we know what that offense can look like.
Yeah.
So
it sounds like we got some trades to make, Josh. We co-manage a couple teams here. I know we missed out on Russ in the startup, so maybe we get a second shot at him a little cheaper.
A little cheaper. If we could get him for a second or 2 seconds, that's a lot cheaper.
Yeah, I think we need to make some offers, and yeah, that's where I'm looking as well. I did the same thing this year. I tried to go after Stafford and get him a little cheaper from some people because he was aging and wondering what would the team would look like, and didn't work out so well. But again, that's part of the fun, right? Is you got to take some shots, you got to speculate a little bit, and see what happens, and have some fun with it. And no trade is ever final, right? So if it doesn't work out,
you pivot, man. You
move on.
The next one. So. And look, I did this in a league this year, and it blew up in my face. But you go for those speculative ads. I had Zach Wilson thrown in as part of a bigger deal. I said, listen, if he gets it together, the weapons are there, the coaching is there, he could be a big thing. All right, he stinks out loud. Fine. But I went for a young guy. Hey, I'll get him thrown in.
Draft capital.
as part of another deal. And actually, in the trade, I got rid of Derek Carr, which seems like that part of
Yeah.
it seems good now.
Yeah, not
You
bad.
know, also got Pat Fryermuth, also got a 24 first. There were other things involved, but second and a third
So,
from our boy
yeah.
Bill
So
McCarthy,
here's
super duper flex
here's
for
Bill saying for Russ, right? Second and
for
third is
Russ.
your initial offer. Yeah.
Yeah, like and listen, especially can you imagine if you were a contender, and I mean a real contender, and you lost in the first round because Russ stinks out loud, but he was your QB too, and you had to start him because let's face it, the 1 week you don't start him is the 1 week he's going for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns, right? That's what we're all thinking. Like if I sit him for, you know, Elijah Moore or KJ Osborne, or that's the week he's going to blow up,
Yeah.
and you're going to run into traffic. So you keep starting him, and he kills you. You're going to be like, yeah, get this dude off my team. The second and the third, let's go. Like the feelings are still going to be there because let's face it, the season, and we'll transfer into this next part, is over in leagues. And I put that in quotes because obviously what we spoke about earlier. So I commission league, Drew, you commission leagues.
Yep.
What I did in the one league I commissioned, I'm so glad I only commissioned one for various reasons, but this is among them. I said in my league, I said, I'm not going to declare anything yet. If they decide that they're going to play this game, this was before they announced that they weren't going to play it this week. If they play this game this week or they decide to play it as a week, quote unquote, week 19, you know what? Those points will come over. If they decide there's no reason to play the game, it's not going to affect standings, or they just go, we'll figure it out another way. I said I'll reach out to all 4 teams that are in the contention to win money, and we'll talk it out and see what happens. I said in another chat, if push comes to shove in that league, I have a best interest of the league clause, which means I make the decision. I do what I think is best. You can either love it or hate it. It was very handy during the COVID season because there was so much stuff going on and so many changes. And it was just good to not have to, say, well, this isn't in the rules. Why are we best interest of the league? That's why I'm doing it. What did you do in your leagues? What was your final determination?
Yeah. As soon as it was announced that they're not playing the game this week, we decided to let the results stand as is. And if anything looked like it was super close, we absolutely reached out individually to ask, are you comfortable with this, or do you want to talk through it anymore? But part of that is also commissioning leagues with people that you have pretty good relationship with. So you have, I think we knew kind of going in, people would be good with whatever we decided. And at the end of the day, it's fantasy, and hopefully, I think more and more folks are getting into this space where you take a little bit of your winnings, right, and you're going to donate it as it is. And we had a couple of folks come back and just say, well, we're going to donate to Hamlin's charity anyways, from whatever we win, or split it or something like that. I've seen people on Twitter say they, every year chopping the pot is always an option too. If somebody, I think we talked about that last year, the year before, what do you do in that situation? And I think a lot of people probably, opted for that this year. So I think with all that's going on, our goal as commissioners was just to let's have some closure where we can, and not muddy the water with what's going on in real life versus what's happening in this fantasy season. And even I see Bill in here, and he commissions a couple leagues that we're in. And one of the leagues, the OG league, right? I'm sitting in that league, and getting my butt handed to me by Jerry O'Shea and Rocky.
Right.
I would have needed Stephon Diggs to outscore Joe Mixon by 51 points to win, and it's one of those like be reasonable, right? Like it's gone. Rocky and Jerry I think outscored me and the second place team by 300 points over the course of the season. So he scored two more. They scored two more entire games in the 14 game regular season. So be reasonable with it. Goes back to what you said earlier. The vast majority of folks I think have been reasonable. So don't make it harder on your commissioner, please. We do this because we want to have fun with folks. But yeah, that's where we landed. Is we wanted to have some closure for the league this week, especially since they said they weren't going to play anymore or determine anything else this week. So that's where we landed.
Yeah, I mean, in the league I commish, and I know Scott Connor was talking about this on one of his podcasts. It stinks because I'm actually in the third place game in the league I commission. So it's one of those things where you don't want to say something that makes it look like you're trying to get a cut when maybe you don't deserve it. And honestly, I was getting my doors blown off in that third place game. I mean, I was down 54-64 with Josh Allen and Devin Singletary. Sure, could an amazing thing have happened and they caught that up? With Josh Allen, nothing is ever out of the range of possibility. But the likelihood is that would not happen.
Yeah.
So in my case, when I talk to whoever, if this game is not played, when I talk to whoever is in third place, I just want to say, hey, I think the odds of me winning. Sleeper kind of ended it. They just said the points are the points. So now everyone who was ahead is 100% to win because they count it now as a win. I think I was at like 1% before that all flipped over. So I'm going to say to him, you're the third place guy. Take the money.
Especially as a commissioner, right?
The championship game. Oh, we got a special guest.
Hey, what's going on, fellas? How you doing tonight?
What's going on, John? How
Good,
are you?
Man, how you doing?
Hanging in there. Got some sick kids, sick wife, and I'm not the healthiest myself, but we're getting through over here. So.
Oh man, that stinks. But
but
you're here now. You're here now.
I made it. A little bit of time left anyway.
We got time. We're just chatting. So the first and second place game is a little bit more complicated because one team is up 24 and has Jamar Chase. The other team has Joe Mixon. So it's kind of one of those things where it's like, does the Jamar Chase team probably win? Yeah. But
he's up 14, not 24. 14. So the margin
14.
is narrower. Yeah.
Math not good. So do you think the Jamar Chase team wins? Probably. But
yes.
Would it be insane to think that Joe Mixon could just have a 30-point game and outscore Jamar Chase by 15 points? So that's gonna. But the good thing is that I know both guys. They're both pretty reasonable. So I think at the end of this, whether it's chop the pot or do like a 60-40 split or something like that, I don't think they will be. I don't think they'll be opposed to that if it has to come down to that.
Yeah.
But So, John, what have you been seeing?
A guy who did it in our league with Bill, right? Did end up winning this week. So congrats, John.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. thank you. That's a tough league. It was a big honor to win that one for sure.
What have you been seeing in your leagues, John? Is everyone kind of mostly being cool or?
Yeah, I haven't had any problems. I commissioned 2 leagues. It's not that big, and the one's only like a $25 league, so it's it's one or the other. It's like, well, we can wait, which is the preference, I would think. To hopefully they do replay it. Haven't heard news that they weren't going to do that at this point. So it's pretty much guys have just been like, okay, like you were saying, I'm down 40 points and I have Joe Burrow. Chances are it's not going to. So, I'm trying to be the mediator in the splits and not have them have to contact each other and talk about it. So, yeah, it's a lot of extra legwork, but I don't know. My preference would have just been to have the average score per game inserted in that spot. Because, like you were saying about 24 points, I was down in one league with Josh Allen by 24. So coming into the night, and then you figure he might get more than that. He was only projected 22, but then his average points per game is 26 and a half. So it's like, well, I don't know what to do. I mean, I think just zeroing out wasn't the best thing, but I mean, what else are you going to do? I mean, you don't have a lot of good options at this point.
Yeah,
you're not going to make everybody happy by any stretch.
Yeah, and I think the platforms especially just wanted to leave it in the hands of the commissioners. Let each individual commissioner make their own decision about it, because nothing that they could do would be right. Like,
yeah,
there's going to be some league where, one team was winning by 5 points and, had Joe Burrow, and you go, well, we'll just give you what the projection was. And, then the other guy goes, well, what if, Joe Burrow had rolled an ankle and now he just gets, 22 points for doing that, and so I think they just had to, MFL and Sleeper, they just had to say, we're not doing anything. The points are what they are. And if commissioners want to go in and, come up with a better idea, it's on you guys. And I think that's really the only decision that they had. But John, we were talking earlier about what were like your takeaways from the 2022 fantasy season. Drew and I gave ours. What were some of yours?
It's just like you would hear people saying about how insane and crazy it was, just all the scoring from different players all year long. And then leading up to the championship that Drew had mentioned, my team just tanked it in the semifinals. I had Devontae Adams, Miles Sanders, you name it. They were single digits.
Same.
And I survived that by 1.6, and then I won in the finals by 1.2. So it's just even though I always try to get the pretty roster myself, but it's not always functional. So it's just it was nice to actually buy some older veterans, which I hadn't really done before, to make a run and really secure what I could do there.
In the Superflex Army, you and I were in the same dispersal a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And to see where you started, you went running back heavy because you had JT, you had a couple other big running back names, and you flipped some guys early on that I'll be honest, I was sitting there watching gosh, I would have kept that one, but I would flip somebody else. And here you are 2 years removed. And looking at the roster, you've got, Daniel Jones. Would you have predicted that he would lead you to a fantasy championship?
I almost traded him for Baker Mayfield before the season. So,
wow.
But I didn't pull that trigger on that one.
But yeah, you got some household names. Yeah. Travis Kelce, did all right. Didn't do his average, but did all right. But yeah, Devontae Adams, Christian McCaffrey, who I think a lot of us were out on, and you did well to hang on to him and have him help you out. Josh Jacobs did well for you this year, and then friend of the show, Kirk Cousins and Justin Jefferson. You won in spite of these guys, huh?
Yeah, that's what you named some of the names on the roster. I was just I sold out most of my picks for next year and one of my 2024s, but I think maybe for another year or two I can be competitive with the players I have on it, but I'm not the type to sit there and keep the same players most of the time. So
yeah, and you beat Sonny and Bill, they won last year, the reigning champs, right?
Mm-hmm.
A ridiculously deep team, tons of wide receiver talent, and they put up 178.8, and it wasn't like you won an ugly matchup by 1.5 points. You had to get every piece of that.
it was exciting all the way down to the end of Monday Night Football because he had Najee Harris, and when he caught that touchdown pass, I'm like, oh man, that's way too close right now. So put me on the
Yeah,
edge
man.
for sure there.
So
Yeah.
we were talking about Daniel Jones. I'd love to tell you guys a funny Daniel Jones story. So you guys are talking, I'm pretty sure, talking about Superflex Army 1.
Yep.
I think all three of us are in Superflex Army 2.
I'm
You're
only in one. Yes.
Oh, okay. So Drew is.
Yeah, I'm in both of them, and with each of you in separate leagues.
Yeah.
So in the startup, I took the guy we were talking about earlier, Drew, Russell Wilson. He was my main man, my main quarterback. And I took some guy that was getting a little bit of hype that year, Drew Lock, as my QB2. Safe to say, Drew Lock did not pan out. But this is a reason, and I would love to have this debate with anyone, but this is a reason why having trade deadlines all season long are great. Because a team in the championship had lost Daniel Jones. He was down due to injury. And he came to me and he said, I will trade you your Drew Lock for my Daniel Jones.
Mm.
And I was like, wait a minute. I checked Google because when a trade sounds too good to be true, I just want to make sure nobody got arrested, nobody got into a car accident, nobody got injured in practice. Google was clean. Nothing happened to Drew Lock. And I said, all right. We did it straight up. Daniel Jones for Drew Lock. And Drew Lock led me to the playoffs in Superflex Army. I was actually the third highest scoring team. Unfortunately, Aaron Yeakel beat me in the first round. He had a really good team as well, so I'm not disappointed in that loss. But I couldn't trade Daniel Jones if my life depended on it. I put him in so many trades, nobody wanted him, and let Russ cook, let Denny Dimes bank, because that dude was he was doing it all year, and I don't know how. 'Cause I never saw.
There's a question for you, Josh, and for John. We went through a whole list of guys. Would you rather between Russell Wilson and these other quarterbacks in the startup this year? Who do you want between Danny Dimes and Russell Wilson?
I hate to do it, but I'm going to stick with Wilson. I have to stick with Wilson there because he does already have the guaranteed contract, and he's going to be there. And I think it's more of a Nathaniel Hackett deal. So hopefully he'll be able to bounce back big time.
Yeah, I had Drew's head spinning with some of my answers for Russ Wilson. So I think they get a established offensive mind in there this year, and they get Russ back to at least ordering Uber Eats. Maybe he's not cooking yet, but they give him the phone back so he can get some Postmates, some Uber Eats.
He's at least ordering food and not soap, right?
Right. Yeah. Because Russ wasn't cooking. He wasn't eating. It was just bad all around.
It was bad.
It was not good.
So we all three of us are in the Timeline OG League, right?
Yes.
So what are we all thinking in the non-point scoring season? What are you all thinking about your teams this next year coming up? What are your aspirations? We all kind of landed across the board here for the regular season. Some of it was injury, some of it was guys that just didn't pan out. What are we all thinking about what we expect for the upcoming season based on what you have for draft capital, based on maybe some of the moves that you think you want to try to make based on where values are right now in the off season?
In that league, it's tougher to move players. It feels like you were saying how many guys I've moved in the Superflex Army League, and it's just like, well, guys want to work with you and guys want to trade. Like in this league, it seems like people are a little bit more stringent on what they want to give away, so it's not as easy to just flip back and forth as I would like, because I was trying to sell Montgomery and Elliott and another aging running back at the end of the year, and it's Connor, and just couldn't get any
Yep.
bites or anything on him, and it's just like, well, how about Kittle? It's like, well, this is right before he blew up. I finally got rid of him for a second in 23, so it's like another loss there. And Waller, at least he maybe will be healthy next year.
Yeah.
So I think I
Well,
kind of
you
botched the
got
draft a little bit for sure.
Yeah, you got a couple of young guys there though with Okonkwo, which the irony, we put up a trade that somebody offered me in another league that included Okonkwo, and at that point, Josh and I were both like, "Who the hell is this guy?" We found out who he was pretty quick.
Yeah.
So you got him, and you've got Jelani Woods as well, who's had a couple of games. So you've got some young upside there, which feels good. But yeah, you do have a lot of the aging running backs. So I guess I'm curious. Another Daniel Jones team.
Yeah.
You got him and Lamar. What do you have for draft capital this year coming up, John?
I think I just have 1 first and 2 seconds coming up. So
Okay.
I'm not going to add a ton to it, but I don't know. I mean, like I said, I'd like to get rid of those aging running backs, but not even the contenders wanted them for insurance or anything. So
Did you and I talk? I feel like
I
missed the boat there. If
no, that's fine. Yeah, we definitely did it at some point, I think. Yeah, because you lined up all the running backs. And like, I'd give this, or this for this guy, and this for that guy. And I was like, well, I don't know. I guess I'll hold on to him for no reason, because it's kind of like I started to tear it down a little too late in the year. But get stuck in that middle.
I do think, though, John, and I saw this happen a lot last year, and I think it's going to happen a lot this year. Draft day, I think you can hit even rebuilding teams that have 202, 203, 204. And maybe it happened last year more because we didn't like the depth of the draft. But I traded the 203 for Zeke Elliott in the league because I was like, and I actually think I traded for the 203, so it may have not been my own pick. But I was like, wait a minute, you want this? What's in the box? It's a boat. It could be anything, even a boat. Like, and that guy took Isaiah Spiller, and I got Zeke Elliott, who was useful in games. I mean, don't get me wrong, Zeke Elliott was not the top 10 guy that he's always been, but he wasn't a scrub. I put him in games, and he scored me points, and I got me all the way to a third place game. So I think you may be able to work some of those kind of deals out too, just to get young, even if you're getting 207, 208 for, Connor and Montgomery. It may, value-wise, it may suck. It may be like, God, these guys are worth more. But it gets the age off of your team and at least gets you picks to get younger, you know. So I think that may be something that you try to look at, because I saw it happening in a lot of leagues last year where it was like, I don't like Zeke Elliott. He's old. It's like, okay, like, you want the 204? Sounds good. I think he's going to suck anyway. And,
Yeah, Josh, you and Bill have a lot of young guys at wide receiver, a couple young tight ends. Running back is kind of hit or miss. You do have Jonathan Taylor. But then, you've got Joe Burrow, and then not a whole lot behind that in quarterback. What are you all thinking this year?
Whoa. I am not going to let you slander the good names of Jimmy Garoppolo and Taylor Heineke. How dare you? Those guys are perfectly fine. QB2s, put them in a rotation, see who's got the best matchup, get yourself a solid 15 to 17 points.
Okay. You guys made it into playoffs this year though, right? Because of points, right? You all got one of the last two spots for points scored.
Yep.
Because you do have guys like Jonathan Taylor, Jamar Chase, Deontay, CeeDee Lamb, Devonta Smith, Garrett Wilson, and some untapped potential yet, or unseen potential in Elijah Moore and Jameson Williams.
Is Jameson Williams untapped potential? I think we've kind of seen what Jameson Williams can do
We saw one play.
We've seen a couple plays. And this is coming straight off of an injury and kind of just going out there and doing his thing. I think Jameson Williams is going to be mighty, mighty fine.
What are you and Bill thinking about this year, Kenneth? You guys talk at all about what you want to do with this team this year?
Bill and I feel pretty good because you guys will let another Garrett Wilson get down to us again.
You got him at the 102, right?
No, we got Jameson Williams at the 102.
No.
Check the draft. I'll tell you why. Because I drafted Garrett Wilson everywhere. And I drafted him early.
Oh,
and
my God.
Yeah, you guys let us have Garrett Wilson.
You never... You didn't even send me an offer.
We didn't send offers for that pick. We were trying to send offers for the 102.
I'm hurt.
Hey, and if you wanted Garrett Wilson at the 102, you could have sent me an offer.
Well, it was Jameson at the 102, but you got Garrett Wilson at the 105.
Yeah, you guys just let us have that. I appreciate all of you.
Well, that pick was traded from me. Hopefully not on the clock.
No. Oh, no, it might have actually been on the clock because I think we were like 107 or 108 because we made the playoffs the first year too. And we had our original pick. I think we did trade with you at some point. It may have not been on the clock, but I think it wasn't during the season either.
Yeah, I don't remember.
But since that's your pick, thank you, John.
Yeah, no problem. I at least I took Christian Watson at the 112 and then traded him away later.
I like that pick. I like that pick. I wasn't a big Christian Watson guy during the pre-draft process, but he's linked up with Aaron Rodgers. If he could stay healthy, that's his only thing. If he could stay healthy. No, but honestly, Bill and I haven't talked too much, but I don't think we have big holes besides like a legit QB2. But,
which you'll have the 108 this year?
Yeah, so
somewhere in there.
Maybe that's Will Levis, maybe that's Anthony Richardson. And I don't know if those guys are
this year's Justin Herbert.
Yeah, see, and the thing about Justin Herbert, and if you've watched the show for a while, you know that I was on Justin Herbert during the pre-draft process. I was like, we're not talking about this guy. We're talking about Tua. We're talking about Joe Burrow, and we're not talking about this guy. And I think this guy is pretty good, but we're sleeping on him because he went to Oregon. West Coast, we're not watching those games on the East Coast and even in the Central Time Zone. And I was like, I think. And there was a league where I had the 110 and 112, and I got Justin Herbert, and this is a super flex league, and I got Justin Herbert at the 110.
Yeah.
And then I got Justin Jefferson at the 112.
Yeah.
And frantically was trying to trade to the 111 to get Justin Jefferson, and nothing I could do for the guy. I can't even remember what that guy took at 111. It wasn't Herbert or Justin Jefferson.
Probably Rager.
Oh,
I got Ragered in that draft.
I bet you that's what it was. Oh, yeah. That's another guy I was so right on. I told everybody that dude stunk out loud. And he had so many excuses made for him. Well, it's TCU. The quarterback wasn't good. Well, I was like, fine, but he's still not good. But, I mean, I can also talk about all the ones I got wrong. And that would be another hour and 20 minutes that we could be here for. So,
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I know, John, you mentioned this league, the OG league is not as active maybe or as easy to move people around on rosters. So we've talked about it a couple times. You know, I think this league was set up for some folks who wanted to kind of dip their toes in the dynasty and get started. So hopefully folks now a couple seasons in will have a better sense of value and kind of what's possible. So I'm hoping each year we'll get a little bit more active and we'll have some more deals go down. I know Justin Rogers put in the chat before he and I traded. I think it had been how many weeks between
Yeah.
trades in this league. So we'll get some more activity going and we'll have some fun there. But
Yeah,
it'll be interesting to see.
that was the first draft that I had done that had the draft picks included.
Okay.
So I ended up with nothing until like a late second, and then I was just taking the older value players, I thought, and that's kind of how I'm in the position now with the old running backs. And
Yeah.
Oh, John, let me give you a peek behind the curtain. I'm glad you mentioned that. So Bill and I think we're like a 110 or 111. And we said, all right, you know what we're going to do? We're going to go full on. And Ryan, your ears will perk up again. Productive struggle. We're going to go. It's going to be all youth. It's going to be all picks. We're going to ride. And obviously, this was the Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, all the quarterback draft where the draft picks were included. I said, I think at 110, 111, the 101 will be there. Because everybody's going to go for the big names, your Lamars, your Mahomes, your Allens, you know. So I think the 101 will be there. And I think it was 103. I could be a pick or two off. Larry Monkey
yeah,
takes the 101. And Bill and I go, all right, we got to adjust because we're not getting Trevor Lawrence, which is the whole reason, you know, productive struggle, get Trevor Lawrence, you know. So we went wild and we took Jonathan Taylor, who I think was the first running back selected at that point. But we did end up getting one first or two first. I can't remember. We got Jamar Chase in the draft. We got Pat Freiermuth in the draft. We did end up getting a lot of picks. So we did kind of still try to go productive struggle, but then it ended up that I think, you know, two of our first three or three of our first three draft picks hit. Jonathan Taylor had his RB 1 year. Joe Burrow was good, obviously, because we had the Burrow Jamar stack. So, but it's funny when you talk about like drafting strategies and like what do you do in a startup? And Drew and I were talking about this a little bit earlier about, you know, where would Russ go in a startup? And it's just funny. People come in. There are a million different ways to do the draft, and it's always fun to see people's strategies kind of play out, you know, especially like you said, John, it was a situation you had never encountered before with draft picks being involved and how you kind of, how you navigate that, how you go, okay, this is kind of a new wrinkle. You know, some people do third round reversals, you know, things like that are, you know, always fun to deal with. But kind of talking about startups a little bit, I want to see what you guys think about this. I want to bring up a name, and I don't ask me what his ADP was because I couldn't tell you. But a guy who was kind of a legend for the first, 3 or 4 weeks of the season, Greg Dortch. Where do you think he was being taken in startups? And we laugh like once we get past round 13, round 14. We're like, oh, we're just throwing darts at a board. And, you know, especially if you're in like a 14-team league or a 16-team league, you're like, all right, who do we take here? You close your eyes and you pick a guy and, you know, but it's crazy how, you know, guys like Greg Dortch had a little bit of time where they were in the sun. Paris Campbell, like, where is he going? He had like a month in the sun where he was a big time player. And it's almost like, man, do we really have to start kind of digging into depth charts and going, all right, well, if, you know, the top two receivers on this team get hurt, could, you know, Greg Dortch be a thing? Could Paris Campbell be a thing? You know, Corey Davis had a couple of games where you were like, whoa, okay. And these are probably guys that you were taking in, 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th round. And they were, they were getting you some points in some weeks. So just kind of like an observation, and it's fun. Every year we go, well, this guy came out of nowhere. And obviously I think maybe the MVP for that this year was Greg Dortch.
See 236?
That was his ADP?
Was it? Yeah, that's my guess.
Oh,
you're not. You don't have.
I don't have it. That's why I said don't even ask me.
Yeah, I think in most 12-team leagues, he was probably undrafted.
You think so?
Yeah, I would. Most of your in most of your safe leagues that are 12-team, 28 players. So you're looking at. I mean, I guess if he was in the 260s, he would have been drafted there because 28 times 12 is 334 players, something like that, are drafted. But yeah, I would say you're talking in the 20th round or later.
That's the crazy part, because that's at the point where we're just kind of like, okay, here you go. DLF, and I'm assuming this ADP has to kind of be from the off season because it's pretty high. Let's see, what was this? Okay, so no, I want to go to. So sorry, this is not good. So his ADP was between like 220 and 225.
That's a pretty good guess, John.
Yeah, not too far off.
Yeah,
so,
within like 5%.
So, yeah, I mean, we're talking in a 12-team league, not quite. No, about.
It's like round 19.
Yeah, and that was probably
and probably because Hopkins was suspended at that point, so you're starting to look down the depth chart there and
right.
kind of see who might be available or could have a shot. But yeah, I don't know what I expect from him moving forward. I mean, because like we said earlier with Kyler, I mean he's not starting week 1 next year. He's scheduled to have surgery this week, or did he have surgery this week already?
I'm not positive on that.
I can look.
But I mean, he had his procedure done, I think, within either 3 days ago or 3 days ahead of us now. He's scheduled to do that, and I think somewhere between week 6 and week 8 is where I've seen some of the early projections of when he would be eligible to return or healthy enough to return. So, so who knows who's going to be at the helm? Who knows who's going to be, coaching?
Probably Cliff Kingsbury, just because they gave him a massive contract extension before the start of the season.
Okay.
Brilliant move.
Thanks, Steve. Said Kyler had a surgery today.
Yeah, 7 hours ago, he put on Twitter that the surgery was successful and he wanted to thank everybody. So, yeah. Colt McCoy, 2023, make the posters now.
David Blau.
Oh,
yeah.
Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, it's crazy, though, how certain teams end up with David Blau and other teams end up with Brock Purdy. I mean, it's just kind of crazy, the talent evaluation process across the league and how some teams always seem to be able to find the third string guy or the undrafted free agent or the CFL guy that nobody knew about that becomes a star in the league. Like, certain teams just always seem to be able to hit on that, and other teams just Hey, Steve's got a good question here. Do you think they add a QB? I mean, they have to, right? I mean, you can't say, even if it's just a month, you can't say, we're going with Colt McCoy and David Blau, and that's going to be what keeps us at 2-2 until. Hey, go get yourself some Case Keenum. Get yourself some. I mean, it could also be a thing where they draft a QB in the third, and go. All right, we're just gonna have a young guy who has traits similar to Kyler Murray. Start him for 4 weeks, and Nathan, Kyle, I'm going to assume that's a real human being, and say yes. So if this guy blows up, I just want credit for saying
you heard it here first,
and then just agreeing with Kyle's hard work and Nathan Rourke, 2023.
Is it a Turpin rub against you for the Cowboys taking him? Because wasn't he the CFL MVP the year before?
Turpin, no, he was the XFL MVP.
That's good. I can't keep track of how many there are anymore. That's good.
Yeah, maybe Steve can give us some more insight on what's happening in Canada there.
Oh, of course. Oh, that Nathan Rourke, BC Lions star quarterback, obviously. I knew that the whole time. I didn't Google it or anything.
He's probably not even in MFL. Who was it? The Rams last year? No, 2 years ago. Didn't they use Streveler, who was a CFL quarterback, who was like the 4-string guy for the Jets this year? No idea.
Yeah, the Jets game was the first time I heard of him when they just put him in there and he ran for 50 yards in a quarter.
I'm pretty sure. You guys chat amongst yourselves. I'm going to look this up because I'm pretty sure I remember. Wow. Okay, I know my computer can hear me because I put CH into Google, and Chris Streveler is the first thing that came up. And no offense.
Oh my God.
He ain't that popular. All right, let's see here. He is currently, yes, a quarterback for the New York Jets. I said that. I want to look up his history here and see where he's been around to. He went to South Dakota. So that's a fun fact about Chris Streveler here. Let's see. Hey, he played on the Cardinals, not the Rams. I had the right division, the wrong team. But Cardinals great, CFL great. Chris Streveler, currently making $150,000 playing for the Jets. So good for him.
Yep.
Good money if you can get it. Because I mean, if someone wanted to pay me $150,000 to be a 4-string quarterback, let's go. I would show up tomorrow.
Yeah. That would be one of those like pros versus Joes moments I'd be interested to see some of us go into. How would we hold up against a 4th-string NFL quarterback in a QB competition?
I would get roasted. They
have to use their weak hand.
Yeah, still getting roasted. I have a surgically repaired hip. Like, I can't get any rotation from the lower half of my body. It's going to be all arm. I'm getting it like 20 yards, if that, while like a 4-string guy is like bombing at 50.
Yeah.
And forget about if there's a pass rush or something going on. Like, I have.
Could you dump it in the net from 30 yards out? How many tries would it take you?
1,000. 1,000. This is what I say to, when I'm around friends and stuff, and they're like, I could do that. No, you couldn't. Not in a million years. You would be lucky. You would lucky to be Zach Wilson in the league. Like that would be your ceiling is Zach Wilson. Like, never mind anything else. And I've pretty much voted Zach Wilson worst quarterback in the league. So
yeah, his focus is in some of the wrong places. John, curious for you, now that you've joined a couple different leagues here that kind of dip your toes in, you're commissioning a couple leagues or so. Do you have a favorite format that you like to play in, as far as how many teams, how many starters? We're going to go ahead and assume that you're pretty committed to Superflex at this point, but curious, kind of, what if you were to join a startup tomorrow, what would it have to look like for you to say yes and throw $50 at it for the year?
Yeah, I'm not too picky about that. I just started with the tight end premium when we did our draft as well, so that's new to me. So I know you guys are way far ahead of that, but I don't know if it really matters at this point. Sometimes it's the people in the league.
Yep.
I'm
that.
kind of in an expert league now, you could say. So it's interesting, like hearing people on their podcast and then being able to go make trades to them when you think like your player's better and that who they like. So it's kind of nice to do that. I don't have my own show, so no recon like that on me. But yeah, my first league I joined, I actually started from like a league that was around for 7 or 8 years before that, and redraft, and a lot of family and friends. So like that's been easy. And then to get outside of that circle and to get into the Twitter pool and kind of find, well, I found Bill, and Bill got me in all these leagues pretty much. He's like, does anybody want to join this league? I'm like, yes.
Yep.
Same.
So
I'm only up to, I think, five dynasties now, but I have a 3.5-year-old and a 9-month old, so it's kind of tough right now to find the time. It's like I never understood how people didn't have 5 minutes to look at their phone and set a lineup or make their ads and their drops. It's just like I'm exhausted. I don't have time to do anything. Like I'm lucky to get waivers, and I just try to put my starting lineup in like as early as possible. It's just so I'm not too picky. I'm hoping to get into some more once my kids grow up a little bit. I don't have to be with them all the time, because I am a stay-at-home dad, so I'm there all day and with them overnight if they need anything. So
yeah, good for you, man. That's more than a full-time job, right?
Yeah, that's what everybody told me. They're like, you probably keep your job. I'm like, that's okay. Like, it'll be better for them, better for us. It'll just work out better. And now I'm just like, I can't believe this is every day. Every day. Up in the morning, Loud toys all day.
Yeah, you blink and it's gone though, right, Jess? What's your oldest, Josh? 14? 9. Okay, so almost
9.
Yeah, we're all kind of in that same band. Yeah, I've got a 7, 5, and 2, and it's This year is the first couple times that I've actually had another commissioner message me about, hey, dude, are you in it or not? Because you kept this guy in your lineup that was out this week. Like, oh, shit, my bad.
Yeah. This is the first year that I've really been like missing like waiver runs and stuff like that, where it's like I'm like, all right, maybe I need to pull back a little bit. So I actually dropped my first league today.
Nice.
Told the commish, I said, hey man, I got to pull back. I got a lot of things going on personally, and I'm not going to be committed to the league. And maybe we'll talk about this as our last topic to wrap up, because I think this is a good one too. The team that I am leaving came in 7th. So this is a 14-team Superflex. I lost Javonte early. I'll look up the team real quick. It's a good-ish team. It does need some work, but I'm definitely not leaving a team that is, second worst with no picks. And I know that's a
bunch of guys that aren't in the league anymore.
Oh yeah, like Javonte. He's the only big IR guy that I had, but trying to just look at this team. I got Kenny Pickett on the bench because nobody else took him, so I said, all right, I guess I will. But I have Trevor Lawrence. I have J.K. Dobbins on this team. I have Christian Watson on this team. This is, I think, maybe the one league that I didn't get Garrett Wilson. So I should actually check Dynasty Planet and see what my percentage is on him, because it's probably high. I have Cole Kmet. I have Aaron Rodgers. So it's young, but came in 7th. So I have a first. I have a couple of seconds. So I've left this team in a good place. It's not a dumpster fire. But how do you feel about leaving a league if the team isn't good?
Oh, go ahead, Drew.
Yeah, I think in general, where most of the leagues are that I'm in now, either you've paid ahead because you've kind of mortgaged your future, so that way the commissioner has a little bit more leverage to help other people want to be interested in going through the rebuild. And I think with the popularity that Dynasty is gaining, the idea of going into rebuild it's exciting for some people, right? I remember the first couple that I took over, it was very much how quickly can I turn this thing around? How aggressive can I get? I can't make it worse, right? So let me try some things that maybe I wouldn't do in another league that I feel like I have a little bit more commitment to. So I don't have a problem with it in general. I think for me, a couple of the first things that come to mind, especially if I'm the commissioner, is I'd like to know as early as possible, so that way I can work on getting somebody to replace that manager sooner than later. It doesn't feel good to get down to like April and the NFL draft is happening. Then rookie drafts are happening within a couple of weeks, and then scrambling there. I've been in that position a couple times too. So let people know early, especially if it's a tougher build. But yeah, as long as the league is structured well, and the commissioner can say, maybe this 2023 is half off, or you pay the full boat, but it'll pay for both 2023 and 2024 to help incentivize somebody. I don't feel bad about it. Where I would feel bad is if there aren't some of those guardrails in place, where I am leaving a team that not only sucks, but has no draft picks, and you're talking about basically starting over, or honestly, you should be probably doing a dispersal at that point, or a second chance, kind of a redraft. So all depends on kind of the scenario there, but in general, I'm fine with it as long as some of those other pieces are in place. What do you think, John?
As a commissioner, I definitely would like to know as early as possible. Luckily, in my leagues, nobody has left, and I think this is the 4th season. So that heavy, you knew they weren't going to quit because of how long they'd been in the regular redraft. So that was a lot of safety there. But I don't know. It's hard because I don't know. I guess I like the teams that don't have any players. One of the teams I got with Bill, when I got like 3 or 4 from him that time, was a team that had Ben Roethlisberger as quarterback and Drew Brees, and it was a year that they retired, and that was the top 2 quarterbacks, and like there was just nothing on this team, only Kelsey, Hopkins, and Chubb. So a couple of years ago, everybody's like, "Oh, they're getting old," so like I didn't really panic so because I just had nothing. So I just kept trading and trading and trading, and now I got a nice core of receivers. But I feel like that's a better experience than a redraft, I guess, or not a redraft, but just a draft in general. I don't know. Just being plugged into the existing league is an interesting thing for sure.
Yeah, I'm kind of the mindset, like, if I'm not having fun in a league, I'm just gonna drop it. But hopefully, if the team has been bad, I've been rebuilding it, and even if that just means like, hey, you got some young guys that might blow up, and here are a bunch of picks, and then let the next guy do what they want. Like in TA2, I'm not planning on leaving TA2, but in TA2, I'm rebuilding that thing, and the team has some upside question mark guys. Like I have Trey Lance. he could be a thing, but he's got to stay healthy. I have like Jahan Dotson and Rashad Bateman. Again, another guy who could be something if he stays healthy. But, I have Pat Fryermuth, but I also have 3 first-round picks. So if I just decided tomorrow, like I'm not going to be in TA2, it's just a league I need to drop. I'm not having fun. At least the next guy goes, okay, roster is kind of thin. Roster is not, not elite. Oh, I have Garrett Wilson. Drew hates every time I say I have Garrett Wilson because he loved Garrett Wilson too, and I took him everywhere.
That's payback for 2 years ago and getting Justin Fields everywhere.
Yeah, you still won that one though. But at least they go, all right, like he's got Garrett Wilson, he's got Pat Fryermuth, he has 3 first-round picks. Like, it's not great. It's not, a team that I can turn from worst to first or second worst because I have a 102. But it's a team that, can be something if I trade some of these picks, if I trade a Garrett Wilson, you can multiply all of that and make it good, and I would rather leave a league like that. But also if I leave a league because I'm not having fun, like the draft I was telling you guys about earlier with Herbert and Jefferson, I left that league because I just wasn't having fun. Like, all right, you're not going to be too upset when you inherit a team and you go, oh, Justin Herbert and Justin Jefferson. Okay, I'll take that one. Thanks. So I think if you intentionally go, I'm not coming back next year, and you just, trash a team and then kind of like leave it for the next guy, it's kind of sucky. But, hopefully you're always trying to make your team the best it can be no matter what stage you're in. And when you leave, it's something, either it's a contender or it's a rebuild that has some assets that you can give to the next owner. So,
yeah, the only anti thing I've found to be kind of useful against that is like having an ownership fee. So you have to like pay for your team. So like on top of like the $100 a year to play, it's $50 up front in the beginning to like own your team. So then if you tear it down, like you're saying, you have less than 3 of the picks in like the next 2 years in the first 2 rounds, then you don't get your money back, and it just goes to pay for the next person coming in.
Right. And a lot, and Bill does this in a lot of leagues where if you trade your future first, you have to pay the next year's buy-in. That way, if you decide I'm not doing this anymore, at least Bill can say to the next owner, hey, this year is completely paid for. You don't have a first-round pick. Team may or may not be bad, but, at least you kind of can tempt someone where it's like, oh, wait, I get this disgusting team and I have to pay for it. At least you can swallow that a little bit more when you realize that you're just you got a free roll year. You can kind of do what you want and then pay the next year. So
yeah, that is nice about the one I got with the bad quarterback situation. I actually got the first 2 years for free. I think everybody just agreed to like take it off the pot at the end of the year or something.
Oh, yeah.
I'm out of my free rides though, so I got to pay this year.
Yeah. Well, how close are you? What are you looking at now then on that roster?
It's still pretty terrible. I have a lot of picks. I think I have 4 firsts this year and 3 next year and some seconds.
Yeah.
Has CD Lamb on it, Waddle, with good receiving core, and then pretty much nothing else. Although I traded for Deshaun Watson last year on that team, and Geno Smith came up for me this year, so hopefully he can start for a few years. Deshaun goes back to his form. Oh, I do have Bryce Hall on that team.
Yeah.
Breece Hall.
Yeah.
So it'll be nice. I have the 101, so him and Deshaun running it.
Team seems pretty good. I think someone tried to slow play that team a little bit.
I don't know. It's hard to say. I won my first game. It was the last game of the season. It kept Bill from having a bye, I think. Or maybe it was the second to last. So I was like 1-22 or whatever it is. Even worse than that.
It's funny
that's
to watch
why.
the Browns talk about it, right? The Browns are out, but they want to spoil for everybody else.
Yeah,
Same thing in fantasy, right? It's like
yeah,
if I can make this win without dropping a draft pick, yeah, I'm doing it.
yeah. I still had a few wins in clearance from that. So plus, there's a guy nice enough to bring me into the league. You might as well take away his buy.
That's awesome.
Oh man,
That was
that
awesome.
is awesome, and that just shows how much fun you can have in fantasy, no matter where you're at, whether you're a top dog or you're the underdog. Just trying to keep people out of buys. But Drew, what do you think? You wrap this up. We're almost at 2 hours here.
Yeah, no, this is awesome. Glad you could make it for a little while, John. It was exciting to see you
Thanks. I
in
appreciate you having me
Superflex
guys on.
Army. Yeah, absolutely. We love having folks jump in and just share a little bit of their perspective, their thoughts, and always good to hear what other people are thinking, kind of how they approach this game about a game, right? So hopefully you and the family feel better soon, get
Oh,
everybody
thank you.
back to normal, so you can continue on in 2023. I'm sure. Is everybody back? Nobody's in school yet, right? So you're just hanging out with the kids at home.
Yeah, my son, we started him on pre-K in the fall, so we've been pretty much
Okay.
sick since then. And then we had like a nice week before Christmas where we were fine, and now we've been just destroyed.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
that
it's
age, man,
fun.
you just expect something from somebody at all times. So
Yeah, he's always putting stuff in his mouth, his fingers in his mouth, and then he'll put his sister's fingers in his mouth, his fingers in his sister's mouth. It's like you
yeah,
might as well not even try to stop it. It's
Nah,
yeah,
you
nah,
can't.
they're building their immunity for the future, right?
correct.
But yeah, glad you could join us, and yeah, excited to see what happens in the OG league and the different Superflex Army leagues that you're in, and good luck to you. Hopefully, you find a couple more
Thank you.
if you're looking for them. Are you thinking you'd rather find a startup or find an orphan for this upcoming year? What
If I
would
had
you
to
do
pick,
first?
I'd go with the orphan if I could
Okay,
pick, and then
I think you'll have a lot of picks.
yeah. These COVID teams are still around that everybody signed too many for. So.
I hear Josh is leaving one that's in
Um,
decent shape.
well, maybe we'll see. I don't think I want to take anything extra on right now. So
I hear you.
So on that note, John, I'll say it too. Thank you for coming on. It's always
thank you.
fun to have different people on, get different points of views, hear what people are doing. And thank you to everybody in the chat. Steve, Kyle, Ryan McDowell. I'm just going to keep saying productive struggle so that he shows up.
It doesn't work like that.
I don't know. We said productive struggle, and then Ryan was in the chat. You can't prove me wrong on that, Drew. But appreciate you guys. Like we said a few weeks ago, and we've kind of been mentioning, we're gonna take a little time off during the off season, kind of recharge the batteries. We've been going for 3 years straight. So we're gonna take a little break. Follow us at Fantasy Timeline, because when we decide we want to maybe do a little all-season content, we'll let you guys know there first. If you want to know even before we put it on the Twitter handle, join the FTC. John is a part of it. We're in it, and we'll probably tell all those people first, because there are people, they've been following us forever, and that's why we give them the first notice on the information there. Thanks to the chat. Thanks to everybody. Appreciate you guys. Appreciate you, Drew. Appreciate you, John. And let's get out of here.
Late.